Hello friends, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. My name is Natalia Leigh. I'm an indie author and the managing editor at Enchanted Ink Publishing, and today I am sitting down for a Q&A. I used to do a Q&A whenever I would hit milestones on YouTube, but I think it's been about 2 years now since I sat down for a Q&A. So I have a list of questions today, really good questions. There are publishing questions, editing questions, personal, bookish, like a really good mix of questions. So I am going to pull out my phone. I have all the questions here and we are going to dive right in. Okay, we are going to start on Instagram. The first question is, what is something in your life that you appreciate the most? And I have to say, I have felt very grateful and appreciative, not only lately, but since Greg and I bought this house. So I would say I'm very appreciative to be able to have a house, to have been able to find and buy this home. This home has provided me stability, safety, peace, a home for the horses, for the cats, a place where Greg and I can build our business, Enchanted Ink Publishing. We both have offices. It's in the mountains. It's just absolutely gorgeous here. So I would say that while I'm appreciative for so much in my life, having a place to call home, a place to call ours, is something that I appreciate on a daily basis. So I'd probably say that. All right, next question is a personal one. Do you and your partner want to have children? My husband Greg and I have talked about this a lot. I'm very comfortable talking about it. At this point, no. We have discussed it many times over the 7 years that we've been together. And right now, neither of us are interested in having children. We do have 3 nephews, 1 on Greg's side and 2 on my side. So there are kids in the family that we enjoy spending time with. But honestly, at this point, I would much rather rescue more animals than have a child of my own. I don't know if that will change in the future. But right now, that's a big no. We are not interested in children, but we are interested in animals. So if we suddenly come into money, instead of spending it on a child, we would probably spend it on rescuing more animals. But that was a fun question. Next one, how is your writing coming along? My paranormal romance was coming along really, really well. In March and April. I did not write at all in May, but I do already have kind of a timeline planned for this story, so I've been thinking about it a lot and I know that I need to get it finished. My goal for that paranormal romance is to publish it this year, probably the end of this year, but I did not write anything in May, so I have to try to get serious in June. And I'm already in Act 3, like I am so close to having that book done. I just need to set aside time and kind of like up my determination and get it finished. But it was coming along well. It's a little stalled, but I have a feeling I'm still going to be able to finish that book and hopefully get it out by the end of this year. All right, next question. Any plans for future animals on the homestead? This is such a great question. And if you guys are interested in seeing more personal videos from me, I have a second channel that's called Little Mountain Homestead. I'll link it down below. I post videos about the animals, vegan cooking, simple, slow living, all kinds of fun stuff over there. So again, that's linked down below. Right now, we don't have any like actual concrete plans for more animals. I have definitely played with the idea of rescuing some chickens. I would love to eventually kind of branch out into rescuing some goats. Pigs, I know from some experience and also just from researching about them, because I've been interested in rescuing pigs for so many years, like 10 years now. I know that they will need good fencing structures. They need a large space where they can kind of dig in the mud and root around. So right now, no plans for pigs. But if we were to adopt more animals, it would probably be chickens or horses. All we would need to adopt more horses would be another shed on the property, another barn. We do have a 3-horse barn, but with 2 horses in there, it can already get pretty tight. Most barns, in my opinion, are made way too small for horses. Horses are kept in super confined quarters, which I really do not agree with. So even our barn right now, it used to have stalls in it. We took all of that out. So that 3-horse barn really only fits 2 horses. So if we were able to afford to put another barn, another shelter on this property, I would definitely be interested in probably adopting 2 more horses and then chickens. But yeah, we don't have any concrete plans. You know, one reason is money. Horses especially are very, very expensive. And the second reason is just we love animals so much. I'm sure you guys have experience with this, that when they are not doing well, it is super, super stressful. And I don't think we're quite ready to add more stress onto our plate, but I would definitely be interested in kind of expanding the safe haven that we have here to include and welcome more animals. All right, next question. How did you come up with a name for EIP? I want to make an author LLC soon, but I'm struggling with names. That's a good question. I came up with the name for Enchanted Ink Publishing the same way I come up with my book titles. And that was simply by thinking about kind of like the vibe and feeling that I wanted the business to have. And for me, it was a little bit magical, fun and mysterious, whimsical. And that, you know, originally when I was picking the name, it was just going to be for my publishing house. I didn't know at that point that it would expand into an indie author business with editing and design services. So when I was picking the name for my publishing house, for my LLC, I wanted something magical and whimsical. So I sat down and I literally just made a list of words that I really liked, a list of words that had the feeling that I wanted my publishing house to give off. And I just started putting all those words together. You know, I would choose different combinations and mash them up, and I eventually came up with Enchanted Ink Publishing, and it really just stuck. So that is not only how I picked my LLC name, but that is also how I come up with book titles. All right, last Instagram question is, should authors avoid using semicolons when writing books? No, I do not think authors should avoid semicolons. I do think it would be helpful for authors to learn how to use a semicolon properly, but of course a copy editor can help you with that as well. I love semicolons. A well-placed semicolon really can up the, I don't know, the skill level of your book, I guess I could say. It functions totally different from a comma or a period, for example. It connects two closely related ideas that are complete sentences, and it does a few different things as well. But no, I do not think you should avoid them. They are one of my favorite punctuation marks. You just have to learn how to use them correctly. Actually, there are a few more Instagram questions, sorry. I was totally wrong about that. I love this one, hair update. So I do have a hair update, but it might not be what people are interested in. I have actually cut my hair a few times since I did my long hair videos. I just cut my hair here at home. I cut my own kind of side bang. I do my own layers. I can't even remember the last time I actually went in for a haircut. It was probably 10 or more years ago, or I think my sister might have cut my hair, trimmed my hair for me, I don't know, 5 or so years back. But I have trimmed my hair. I cut probably about 6 inches off, and that is because I just got tired of it. My hair was down to my butt at one point, and while I absolutely love long hair and how beautiful it looks on people, it was really getting frustrating to me as well. I felt very limited in the styles that I could do. I was constantly striving to not damage my hair, and I definitely know that all the effort I put in to not damage my hair helped me grow it out long. So that definitely paid off in the end, but I just got a little tired of feeling like I don't want to put my hair in a ponytail. I don't want to put it in a bun. I don't want to do any of these damaging things. And I just said, enough is enough, I'm gonna cut it. So I did end up cutting about 6 inches. I actually recently trimmed it again. So here it is. Definitely much shorter than it was when I did my hair care videos, but this is my hair update. My hair color is totally grown out. I used to dye my hair a lot. I used to dye it black quite often. But yeah, here I am. This is a fun question. What is the most common punctuation error you find in the course of your editing work? It's going to sound simple, but comma usage. Commas have so many different uses and so many different rules, and I'm going to put air quotes around them because some of those rules can become a little bit fluid depending on what your intentions are with your sentences, but commas are misused all the time, and one of the biggest places I see commas misused would definitely be dialogue and dialogue tags. I see commas misused there a lot. And then also comma splices. I see those happening as well. And essentially a comma splice connects two complete sentences, but a comma should not be connecting two complete sentences unless you have a conjunction there. So a comma splice occurs when you have those two complete thoughts and no conjunction to join them. So comma splices are a big one, and dialogue tags are a big one as well. All right, next question. How are the horses doing, and is Sasha now a fully integrated household member? So I knew this question was gonna get me. I'm really trying not to cry through this. So one of our horses, Ty, passed away this month. So Ty passed away on May 9th, and it has been really, really hard without him. Not only are Greg and I heartbroken, but Gypsy was having a really, really hard time too. So for anyone who knows horses, you probably know that they are obviously herd animals, and they don't do well alone. A lot of people will keep a horse alone, usually for financial reasons if they can't afford to have two, or you know, maybe they know that they don't want to continue the cycle of constantly having two or more horses. So I understand some of that, but horses are really not meant to be alone. And Gypsy really, really struggled. We weren't sure at first what we were gonna do when Ty passed, but Gypsy was having such a hard time. She was so stressed out and grieving, and she was hurting and anxious. She would run our fence lines constantly. Like, I remember we had put up a fence in front of the barn to keep her safe and to kind of keep her in a smaller space, knowing that she would be grieving. And I let her out, and she, for an hour straight, ran the fence, calling to a horse who lived up the way. So we knew pretty much within 1 to 2 weeks that we were going to have to get another horse, even though it really pained us to think about that and to think about getting a new horse here. But we ended up adopting a new horse. He is a senior gelding. He's 26, and he is settling in really nicely. I will certainly talk about this more in other videos, I'm sure, and I'm going to be doing a couple videos over on Little Mountain Homestead. I will be doing kind of like an introduction for the new horse. His name is Stormy, and I'm also gonna do a bit of a memorial video for Ty, and I'll share a little bit more info about what happened, because it was so unexpected. It just came out of nowhere. We thought he was fine that morning, and by that evening he was gone. So that was a hard question, but I do appreciate it, and I've known that I wanted to mention it here because you guys probably know animals are a huge part of our life, and I feature them here on the channel a lot. So you won't be seeing Ty anymore, unfortunately, but you will be able to meet Stormy very soon. So that's how the horses are. That's what's been going on with us. And for the second part of that question, it's a happy answer to the second part of that question, which is Sasha now a fully integrated household member? She absolutely is. She is sleeping here in my office with me as I'm filming this. She and Mew are not friends. They don't like curl up next to each other or anything, but they're kind of like neutral acquaintances. Like they will, essentially they'll put up with each other's presence, but they're not friendly. They don't like hang out or anything, but she's fully integrated. She has the run of the house. She and Mew kind of have their own areas where they like to hang out. And recently I've actually started taking Sasha outside with me in the mornings and, you know, keeping a really close eye on her because she used to be an outdoor cat and that's how she got hurt, and we brought her in and the whole story behind that. But she likes going outside, and she's been doing a really good job of just staying with me. She's been going out to the garden with me every morning. I like to take my coffee out there and check on my sprouts and see how they're doing, and she's been going out with me. So she is a happy, healthy, fully integrated family member now. Okay, my camera battery was dying, so I just changed it, and we might be at a slightly different angle, but we're moving on to the next question. What's a way to avoid endless rewrites and how to deal with conflicting advice? So in terms of avoiding endless rewrites, I think the first thing that comes to mind is that with any artistic pursuit, you have to know when to say enough is enough. And sometimes I think it can help us more to wrap up a project, consider it completed, and move on to something new. I think constantly and endlessly rewriting the same project over and over is just going to be frustrating. It's going to steal the joy that you found in that story. So I think do your rewrites, do your revisions to the best of your ability, and then wrap it up and call that story complete, because then you get to start something new and you get to go through the whole process again, the outlining or brainstorming or the first draft, and you get to do all of that again, and it's going to just help you hone and sharpen those skills even more. And in terms of conflicting advice, I think if we're talking about like advice for outlining, first drafts, revising, you know, publishing, stuff like that, everybody has their own way of going about things. So I say try it all and see what works for you. And something else you might consider, you know, that I have learned is that every book is different. Every book I have written has required something different of me, and I have, you know, outlined it differently, or I've drafted it differently. You know, maybe I use Scrivener versus Word. So I still do not have like a set in concrete, set in stone process that I use with every book, because every book needs something a little bit different. So I would say go with the flow, try, you know, different suggestions, try different advice from different people, and just see what works for you and for the project that you're working on. All right, non-bookish question. Favorite spring smell? Living here, I have a few. One is the smell of the horses in the barn, especially in the spring when it's warm and wet from the rain. Horses and hay has a very distinct smell, and it has been one of my favorite smells since childhood. I fell in love with horses at a very young age. I'm tearing up again. So I would say that. And then I would also say rain, of course. It has an amazing smell. And living here, mountain sage. We have a lot of mountain sage growing on our property, and when you just walk through it, or the horses walk through it, it kicks up this amazing, rich sage smell, and I absolutely love it. Granted, I think I might be a little bit allergic to it, but it's just an amazing smell. And for me, I have learned living here the past few years that that smell means spring. So that is a fun question. And then the bookish one, authors that inspire you. Any that you connect with their style of writing or an element of writing that they do well. I really love Maggie Stiefvater. I really love Laini Taylor. And those are the two who immediately come to mind when you say that, because they are the two authors who, I mean, they have very different writing styles, but I love them both so much. When I think of Laini Taylor, I really think of this lyrical, almost poetic writing style with a lot of detail and description, and I love that about her books. And then Maggie Stiefvater, I think of her work as something a bit more mysterious, maybe something a little bit edgy, and I love how different those authors are and how different their voices are, but I love them both so much. So definitely Maggie Stiefvater and Laini Taylor. All right, the last one on Instagram is tips for dealing with imposter syndrome. That's a really good question. This is something that I struggle with every so often, not as much as I used to, but I think in terms of how I dealt with it is just giving myself, speaking kindly to myself. That's something I've struggled with in the past, is being really hard on myself and saying unkind things to myself, things that other people in my life would never say to me, people who care about me, right? So I would say speak kindly to yourself, believe in yourself, and also for me, it's being okay with not knowing everything, being okay with making mistakes. You know, if you are a new writer and you're working on your first book, being okay with, this is my first book and it's not going to be the best book I write. It's not going to be the best book out there right now, but it's still important and it still means something, and it can still mean something to your readers as well. And just coming to terms with that and being okay with that. And hey, this is my first book, you know, like my first book, Highborn, it has so many problems, but I am still so proud of it because it was the first book I ever wrote and edited and finished and published. And I love it for that reason, and I have so much joy and gratitude in my heart for that project because of how hard it was. So if you're feeling like an imposter, speak kindly to yourself and be okay with not knowing everything or not being able to do everything in the way that you think you should. At least that is what has helped me in the times when I'm really doubting myself. All right, now I think we're moving on to the YouTube questions. What is a genre that you haven't written that you would be interested in writing? I think, oh, I know one for sure, now that I've thought about it. I have had this idea for a post-apocalyptic novel since I was in high school. I remember sitting outside at the pool when I was in high school and I was on summer vacation, and I was trying to outline the project, but back then I had never written a book before. I didn't understand story structure or story beats or even myself and how to outline. So that story never really came to be, but I've been thinking about this book recently. I have a real love for nature and for skills, you know, humans, us, having skills to survive and to work with nature instead of against it. And for me, that kind of goes hand in hand with post-apocalyptic, but also with historical fiction. And you might know I wrote Pistol Daisy. I'm working on the second book, Whiskey City, and those are set in the late 1800s in the Wild West. So I'm really drawn to stories that are closely tied to the environment and to nature. And I have this idea for a post-apocalyptic world where people have probably been wiped out by an illness, and the survivors have really gone back to nature. And I don't think I necessarily would want it to be like a horror or thriller zombie type post-apocalyptic book, but more of a post-apocalyptic book that is really that aftermath in terms of people rebuilding and reconnecting with nature and themselves and with like old wisdom. So I would probably say that, like I would probably want to write a post-apocalyptic book. That is a fun question. Which do you think you'll release first, Whiskey City or your paranormal romance? Definitely my paranormal romance. I'm pretty much done, or very, very close to being done with my Whiskey City outline, but the outline that I have now totally shifts the time frame for that book. So even though I have, this is not the real cover, even though I've written Whiskey City and I have done 3 drafts of this book, I'm actually going to really shift the timeline and I will need to completely rewrite it. So the outline is almost done, very, very close to being done, but I have not started rewriting it yet. So, and plus, I really have a lot of respect for Daisy. I love her and I really want to do her story justice, so I know that that'll be a really intense process, writing Whiskey City and getting that book out. So definitely the paranormal romance, which has been such a fun process for me, and I want to get that one out hopefully by the end of the year. I'm nearing the proofreading stage of my book and I wanted to ask, is it normal for a proofreader to work on your book before it's formatted, or should they always review it after formatting? I've seen people doing both and I want to make sure I'm working with the best option. This is a really good question. So traditionally and typically, and what we at EIP do, is we proofread after the book has been formatted, because if you're proofreading, or if you hire a proofreader to look at your book before it's been formatted, they are not getting the chance to ensure the correct design. They're not checking your headers and footers. They're not checking for correct page alignment. They're not looking for consistent design all throughout. For example, did every single chapter get the same design? Do you have your front and back matter where they need to be? My opinion is that a professional proofreader should only be proofreading your book after it has been formatted. However, there are some other things to consider here. Through EIP, we require that a book has been professionally copy edited before we will proofread it. And there are a couple reasons for this. One is that a proofread is a little bit cheaper, but that is because it is not doing the heavy lifting that a copy edit is doing. A copy edit might come back to an author with 10,000 changes. A proofread should not be coming back to an author with 10,000 changes. And that is not even an exaggeration. I have done copy edits, you know, with 15,000 changes. So a copy edit and a proofread are very, very different. A copy edit is the heavy lifting, and a proofread is that final polish and catching anything that slipped through, while also ensuring your design work and your actual page setup is correct. Something else to consider though is that if you are working with a professional formatter, you want to know what their process is in terms of making revisions. At EIP, we make revisions after the format has been completed. So we'll format the book. That formatted book gets sent to the proofreader. Those changes come back. The author reviews all the changes, adds any of their own changes, and then we make those final revisions to the print ready files. So that is the way that our process goes. But I have talked to some authors who are working with other formatting companies that don't do it that way. Some formatting companies don't want to have to make revisions, so they'll tell you that you have to do a proofread before the format. And I understand where they're coming from, because it can be a very tedious and detailed process updating all of your final files with proofreading corrections. But at the same time, if a company tells you that, or if a proofreader tells you that, just know that you're not going to get the full package essentially that you should be getting with a proofread, because a proofread should be reviewing an actual typeset finished product versus just a Word document. So you kind of have to decide what's important to you, and you know, talk to your proofreader, talk to your formatter, however you want to do it. My suggestion is to get a proofread after everything else has been completed, so that you know that you're getting the fullest proofread possible. This one, hi Natalia, hope you're well, thank you. I haven't written in a while, and I've recently restarted. I have a project that I left because another project came to mind. I know exactly how that feels, chasing different like story ideas. Do I finish the one I'm currently doing, or should I return to my previous project? I used to say only like finish a project before you move on to something new. I used to have a really firm kind of opinion on that, but since I have experienced what it's like to fall out of a writing habit and then try to get in, and then fall out and try to get back in, I would say go with what feels right. That's the reason that I started writing my paranormal romance, is because Whiskey City felt very daunting to me coming back from like a 2-year hiatus on writing. I just felt like I need to write a fun, lighthearted project that doesn't weigh me down. You know, I don't feel like weighed down with like the burden of doing Daisy's story justice. So that's why I started something new. And it's been really healthy for me to just write and have fun with a romance novel that I hope readers are going to enjoy. I have really enjoyed writing it, and I have a lot of fun reading back over it. So if you are coming back into writing and you're trying to get started again, a new project might be a great way to do that, because you get to start fresh. And that's my plan, at least, is that, you know, once I can really get back into this, I can start shifting my focus to my serious project, which is Whiskey City. So that's just the I guess the approach I'm taking coming back from, you know, on off writing, and before that, like a 2-year hiatus. If your books get picked up by a traditional publisher, would you accept it? That's a fun question. I think I probably would, because it would be really fun to experience. A hawk just flew by. I think it would be really fun to experience the traditional publishing world. Through being in the self-publishing industry for quite a few years now, and learning from others and talking to other people, I don't necessarily think that traditional publishing is everything I want it to be, or used to want it to be. It used to be like my dream to get picked up by a traditional publisher. But I don't have that approach to it anymore. I don't see it that way anymore. I have shifted to really see it as a big business. I think it would be really fun to have a book picked up by a traditional publisher, and I might give it a go just to have the experience. That's definitely not my main focus, because I really enjoy the freedom that self-publishing gives you. Hi, Sasha. What's your latest favorite book? I'm actually going to show you the book I've been reading. It is a nonfiction, and it's called The End of Night by Paul Bogard. The End of Night, Searching for Natural Darkness in an Age of Artificial Light. My mom got this for me actually at a nearby national park, and I've been reading it, and it has been both a really enlightening, fun experience and a sad experience reading this, because this book it really dives into what we are losing, what not only we as humans are losing, but also the natural world and wildlife, what we're all losing because of humans' addiction to artificial light, even as simple as something, you know, as simple as street lights or leaving your porch light on at night. These are things that we don't necessarily think about. We've not really been, you know, we've been conditioned to think that all of this artificial light is normal, but it can have really negative effects on wildlife and on us as well. So I have really been enjoying this book. Again, it is sad, in parts just opening my eyes to how negatively humans can impact the environment and the animals that live in it, but it's beautifully written, it's thought-provoking, it's poetic, so I've really been enjoying it. I would say I'm about halfway through at this point. I've been going outside in the mornings with a cup of coffee now that it's warm enough and sitting in the sun and reading, and it's a really nice, relaxing, slow way to start the day. If you are interested in this, if you are somebody who's interested in the darkness and night and learning more about the impact that artificial light has on wildlife, I will link this book down below. I do highly recommend it. It's been a really eye-opening read. Okay, the very last question of this Q&A is, are you still traveling in the van at all? It's kind of a sad answer, but no, we actually sold our van about 2 years ago. Yeah, about 2 years ago. We actually sold the van before we moved into this house. It was a bit of a difficult decision, you know, kind of deciding like, are we really going to pursue van life and traveling, or are we gonna settle down and get a house? But we opted for the house and we ended up selling the van. Greg especially would still really like to travel, and we're living in a wonderful location for that, in terms of camping and getting back into like the rural woods and the wilderness, but we don't yet have a vehicle for that. Because we have the horses, we always need to have a vehicle on the property. So for example, if Greg went camping, I would need a vehicle here to hook up the trailer and, you know, evacuate the horses or take them to the vet if they needed. So we need to get another like camping vehicle, but they are just so expensive right now. We have not found one that fits, but that's something that Greg is absolutely interested in. I would love to see him be able to get out into the woods in like a rugged, you know, off-road vehicle. I know that would make him really happy, and it would make me happy too. But no, we're not traveling in the van. Honestly, we barely leave the property. We are like super settled here at the house. We probably only leave once or twice a week for like errands and to just get out every so often when we start going a little bit stir crazy. But there's no more van in our life at this point, maybe in the future. But thank you for that question. And thank you everybody who submitted questions. I really appreciate it. It's been nice sitting down and kind of catching up and being able to chat with you. I expect to be back next week with another like tips and tricks video. If you have any requests for content on the channel, you can always leave those requests in the comments down below. I always check those, and I'm constantly adding to my list of videos that I want to film. If you are looking for an editor, formatter, or cover designer, you can come check us out at enchantedinkpublishing.com. We are actually having a summer formatting sale right now. All of our formatting packages are 25% off. So if you are interested in working with us, now would be the best time to get booked, because you're going to get that discount before we discontinue it. So even if you wanted to get booked for like December or early 2024, we could get you booked and you would be able to get in with that 25% discount. So definitely something to consider if you are looking for a formatter. We do have copy editing and proofreading availability for 2023. We are booking line editing into 2024. So if that is a service you're interested in, please reach out to us sooner rather than later so that we can get you a date on our 2024 calendar. That is all I have to say. Again, thank you guys so much for the questions and for tuning in, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.